The Sports Lounge, brought to you by Waterview Sportsbook and Casino, with hosts John Wiener and Ray Coleman. Welcome to the Lounge.
Welcome to the Lounge, and it's good to be back after a couple weeks hiatus. I'm John Wiener, television's on, Ray Coleman. Good to see you, man.
Glad to be back in the Lounge, man. Always a fun time. I don't want to call it a hiatus. That's not the right term. Took a little break. How about that?
Well, we took a break, a slow time in sports, and used it to make some upgrades here in the Sports Lounge. So we're really excited, Ray. As always, this show getting bigger and better than ever every week. Took a couple weeks off. Now we're back, and it's a big week in sports this week here in the middle of the summer.
And a little bit of everything, man. From SEC Media Days, which is always huge around this part of the country. Anything from the Open Championship, which whether you're a casual golf fan or a diehard like yourself,
it's center stage this week over there in Royal Portrush. We'll talk a little NBA basketball, a little local legend making a run in the NBA table for two, always fun. Our deep dish, we'll get into the second half of the Major League Baseball season, and Big Game Brant from SEC Media Days.
Anytime you bring in David Brant, man, you know you're going to get the right expertise and a little bit of a good time, too, just to have our friend in the lounge, no doubt.
Absolutely. And, of course, we'll send you out with some parting shots. Reminder, you can see the Sports Lounge online, on screen every week on all the Bash Brothers media platforms, and we are so excited about what's happening here at Bash Brothers and in the Sports Lounge as we look ahead to firing things up even more in the fall. Ray, we'll get into our starters, and speaking of firing things up in the fall, by the way, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, man.
I know it's been some like vertigo. Like I thought that was just a thing Jason Day made up on the fairway, but
well, he did not, and it's the real deal. I've been struggling with it, still struggling with it a little bit, man, but on the mend and feeling a lot better, taking nothing for granted anymore as far as
walking.
Like
a champion today, though, right? You're here.
You got to step up. This is playoff time, so I got to put on the show for the fans, man.
Well, it's SEC Media Day time in Alabama, and Ray, what this is for me is like when you talk about SEC Media Days, you don't get a lot. It's a big 4 or 5 day kind of fanfare celebration. I've used some words that I can't say here, but
I probably have too, by the way.
But in terms of just the meaning for SEC Media Days, it tells you that hey, SEC football is right around the corner, but for me, it starts for the first time we think about, okay, what are the big stories in the SEC this year?
And for me, man, I think it's just the new quarterbacks that are coming in from Kelly Bryant over at Mizzou. I know Matt Corral isn't new, but just kind of taking over that Rebel program to Tommy Stevens at Mississippi State. You got so many names of quarterbacks in this league, man, that could quite honestly change the outcome of the league, perhaps. So that's the one thing that kind of stands out to me.
And, of course, some returners in Tua Tagovailoa in Alabama, Joe Burrow at LSU, Felipe Franks at Florida. And I want to talk about Felipe Franks in the East. Like, Ray, this for a while now has been a two-team conference in terms of Alabama and Georgia. In the West, they're trying. Like, you can't fault LSU and Auburn and A&M and even Mississippi State for what they're rolling out on Saturdays, and they just haven't been able to get past Saban in Alabama. But them dudes in the West, that's some real football. But in the East, when I look at Georgia and the schedule that they played last year, Ray, they beat their 6 Eastern opponents by an average of 21 points a game. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, always dreadful. Missouri, other than their first 2 years, have brought very little. And then you got Tennessee and Florida, who used to be powers when we were growing up, and have also been anemic in the last 10 years. When you look at who is in the East, or more like who's not, I think you could take teams out of the ACC. I think you could take Texas, and a lot of them would do what Georgia did in the East. So is it a two-team, league? Yeah, probably still. But for me, it's like, is it going to be Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee? Is it going to be Dan Mullen at Florida to kind of rise up and make this thing interesting in the East?
The only thing you're asking for is a challenge, man. It's like we're saying, we're knowing that Alabama is the favorite in the West. No question. They're always going to be as long as Saban is there. But in that East, you feel like nobody is making a challenge to the Georgia Bulldogs, and that's all we want to see.
Yeah. I mean, you look at their, real quick, their road games last year. At South Carolina was a ranked team. They beat them 41-17. It was an absolute skull dragging. Curb stomp Tennessee. At Missouri, 43-29. Kentucky was the 11th ranked football team in the country, and Georgia just pole waxed them 34-17. Wasn't even close last year.
That's what I mean. Just make it interesting for us, for the folks at home to say, when we get to that SEC championship game, the person from the East actually earned it.
when you talk about interesting, the Open Championship this week, the British Open at Royal Portrush, always center stage in the golfing world. Other than the Masters week, it can be, I think, increasingly my favorite week of the golfing year just because it's so unique, man. It's morning golf. It's links golf. This year it's in Northern Ireland with all the history. And
First time in like 70 years,
and the politics behind it. Yeah, absolutely. 68 years, and that story is fascinating in its own right. But Ray, I honestly think like this is the week for golf, you know what I mean? It's going to take center stage in the sports world.
I think it will, man. The thing that I always appreciate about the Open Championship, first of all, the views when you see it on television, that's the first thing, but also how the course dominates just all-time greats. You know what I mean? I just can see myself watching and thinking, oh, that's what I look like when I play at one of these local golf courses, right? The way that the course dominates the subject matter, that's the part that I really appreciate about the Open Championship.
No, it's a good point. And when you check out our Play It Where It Lies Open Championship preview show, hey, Henry Weiner, Hackin' Hank was in front of the camera this week on Play It Where It Lies. But that's so much about what we talked about is, for one, our guest Brendan Poras said, hey, the Open's on a heater. I mean, the last 5 or 6 Open Championships have been absolutely incredible stuff, but in a day and in a modern age where TV dictates everything, the viewing, the aesthetic look, and the way the Open plays on TV, I think really has played well for it, you know, and I'm fired up for it, man. I mean, it's a morning start, like 1 a.m., like, you know, your boy's not going to sleep.
I know it.
You know what I mean?
No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. What about this? Have you been paying attention to Zion Williamson, or the lack thereof of Zion Williamson in the NBA Summer League that has just wrapped up?
Well, it was amazing, first of all, like the star power that this guy has and the way the NBA, even in the offseason, because of the star power of the players, can dominate the headlines. The Summer League game, we'll get to the injury, but the first Summer League game out there in Vegas was Zion. I mean, Ray, it was like a Mayweather-Tyson fight.
Who's who, man, to say that an 18, 19-year-old kid can get LeBron to come out and watch him, right? Celebrities from the movie industry, the entertainment industry in general, to just show up to watch him and R.J. Barrett play. That just shows you the moxie that he brings to the game. It
was absolutely wild, and then Zion goes out and gets hurt in his first Summer League, and he's shelved for the rest of the summer. Coach K, his former coach at Duke, comes out and says Zion should have never played if he was that overweight, apparently 20, 25 pounds overweight. Is this a concern for the Pelicans and for Zion's future?
It's only a concern because Zion should be in shape. Now, I know he's got a bunch of obligations right now when it comes to the contracts, the different appearances, being a new face in the league. But the way that your bread is buttered is by being a supreme athlete, right? That's the way you're going to get all these extra checks if you're looking at it that way. So if he's out of shape, the Pelicans have to sit him, but Zion's got to take some personal responsibility too, man, to say, be ready. Otherwise, you are going to run the risk of getting yourself hurt.
People made the joke when Zion first went to New Orleans that, you know, they showed the meme of like the dude in the headband throwing it off the backboard, you know, missing shots, and he's like 20, 25 pounds overweight. They said that's going to be Zion after his first 3 weeks in New Orleans, and he kind of looked that way. Now, he played really great in the Summer League in that limited action. Ray, I think it's a big concern for 2 reasons. One, because this is what we talked about with Anthony Davis going to L.A., with Greg Oden to Portland. It's a great example. It's a concern if only that all your eggs are in this one basket, and Zion being a superstar and this singular force, you know, one debilitating injury can change the whole narrative. And Hackin' Hank's telling me to wrap it up like Zion would, like at the buffet, you know what I mean, the second time. Like, I'm going to go back and I just say, I think the physique itself with Zion could be a problem. You know what I mean? When I look at him, the one wonder is he going to maintain the slenderness and the, I don't know if slenderness is the right word, but maintain that athleticism, because he's a bigger dude
just to
begin
maintain
with.
that physique. And if nothing else, the wake-up call is this: Charles Barkley told you to get in shape. So if Charles Barkley is telling you to get in shape, you probably need to get in shape.
Zion looked like Chuck now, you know what I mean? Not Chuckster, but that's a great comparison for Zion, by the way. Really it's a great comparison.
It's a perfect comparison.
You hit the nail on the head.
But when
there.
Chuck was in his prime, Chuck was in great shape, man. So he's got to get to that point for sure.
We'll close our starters with this. And Ray, a guy who, way back in the day, a long time ago, when he was at Callaway High School in Beasley Road, the #1 ranked player in the country, 4 state championships, Malik Newman, you know the drill, was thought to be a Zion-type guy, surefire NBA lottery pick, and We know the story. We don't have time. We don't have 4 Sports Lounge shows to get into what happened with Newman. But all of a sudden, his last Summer League game, Ray, he puts 33 on the board. It really went viral. It turned a lot of heads in the NBA in terms of this kid Malik Newman putting 33 on the board. What do you make of it, and how is this ultimately going to end?
You and I both know that Malik can do that any night. That's the reality of it. He's a scorer, so he can go and get a bucket, no problem. The issue is he's a volume scorer. So. But he's not Steph Curry. He's not James Harden. Who
he's a volume scorer, but he's not quite good enough.
Yeah, but those guys are allowed to be volume scorers. Nobody's going to give Malik Newman 15 to 20 shots a night, so he's got to figure out a way to do other things. That's the reason why he has not played in the NBA, because he has not learned to develop his game in other areas.
I'm with you. At the end of the day, the one thing we know about Newman that we saw at Mississippi State and we saw at Kansas, even through all the tumult and shenanigans, as I heard a local coach use the term recently when he talked about Malik's whole path and all the voices and the hype and everything. But we know that he can score the basketball when he gets hot. Can he defend? You know what I mean? Can he move? Can he pass? I don't think any of those questions are sort of any more answered. I will just say it was nice to see the confidence in Newman again. We saw that at Kansas that we never saw at Mississippi State. This was a guy who, in talking to people really close to the situation, I followed Malik since he was a freshman. He was a guy who was psychologically shaken from that fall from the hype of the pedestal of the best player in the country to undrafted, unwanted, everything. You know what I mean? When it came to Newman. So the fact that you saw some of that confidence and that bounce that made him such a great player in the first place, like that says, hey, maybe there is a shot here. Maybe there's a future down the line. With if he can get in the right situation, he can still help a team.
And the door is still open, man. He's got the skills to do it. If he puts in the work, as much as he's put in on the offensive scoring part of his game, if he'll put it into those other nuances of the game, he can absolutely do it, man. Malik Newman.
When you say do it, I still think the ceiling is like just making a roster. This guy, I think, is a long way from being able to be a regular player in the NBA. But if you can go out and give people 33, like there ought to be a spot on the roster, maybe as a bench scorer.
And that's why I say he has that ability to play. Malik Newman can play in the NBA. Teams are just looking for him to add other pieces to his game to make him more valuable, to take up a spot on that bench for sure.
Well, look, here in the Sports Lounge, we hit it all from the big stories in the country, across the pond, and certainly right here in Mississippi. Get in the game with the Sports Lounge. We're hosted by Waterview Sportsbook and Casino, your #1 place for legal sports betting in Mississippi. He's Ray Coleman. I'm John Wiener. David Brandt still to come. Game time. We didn't even talk about game time.
Game time, but it's coming, though.
It's coming. It's here every time.
Yeah.
You know what it is. David Brandt's going to join us as well. But coming up next, SEC Media Days, a little tennis, a little pub food, it's all there.
A little Major League Baseball
Table
talk as
for
well.
two, man.
It's coming.
It's everybody's favorite time. Stay with us in the Sports Lounge.
Get in the game in the Sports Lounge. Online, on screen, every week. Follow us online at Bash Brothers Media.
Hanging out in the Sports Lounge. He's John, I'm Ray. And we haven't given a shout out to the rest of the crew, man. So let's do it right now. Houdini Hank, back in the building.
Absolutely.
Josh the Juice, back in the building. Who else in the building? ISO Joe, my man.
ISO Joe, what's going on, man? Let's go to the ISO camp.
Hell yeah, not much. You guys getting ready for this table for two coming up?
Hell yeah, just like you said. Joe came in hot.
Yeah, he's ready.
Ready to go, man. Joe said, give me my FaceTime. All right, what's the game, man? Tell
All
us.
right, table for two. So I give you guys 3 choices, and you guys got to pick 2 to sit at your table. And we're doing a little bit, relevant to everything that's going on right now. So let's start off with SEC Media, all-timers for coaches. We got Steve Spurrier, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron.
Man, this is a really good one too, because like all 3 of these guys give you some of the best sound bites ever.
Yeah.
So
Legends.
just absolute legends. For me, man, the old ball coach of Steve Spurrier, dude, he gave some of the best sound bites ever and never cared what anybody thought about him. I like Les Miles, man, because he's kind of weird. He's kind of like off with some of the things that he says, but it resonates with me. Orgeron, listen, I love to hang out with the dude, but I can't understand a word he's saying. I can't understand a word he's saying. So just for this,
Can we get the Colonel Rabbit's crying video in this show?
If we're gonna just have somebody at the table, I want to have a conversation. So Coach O can't sit with me, but afterwards we can go have a drink for sure.
I'm gonna agree with you as well. Steve Spurrier, the HBC. What you loved about Spurrier is like he he relished it. You know what I mean? Like he came ready with his, with his Tennessee zingers and everything else. I mean, Spurrier. It came though from a place of ultimate swag and confidence. You know what I mean for Spurrier. And I'll go with Les Miles over Orgeron, like for this reason, like. Orgeron is kind of a little unintentional comedy. Yeah. Like people are kind of laughing at him, you said, because people just can't understand him, and he seems like this big dumb Cajun ogre. He's not. He's fascinating. He's one of the best recruiters in the entire country because he can connect and talk with kids.
He's a real dude. He's a real dude, yeah.
But like Miles is just that. Like that's a quirky cat, and Les kind of. I think he relish the opportunity in front of the microphone in the same way a little bit that Spurrier did. Like Orgeron, it's kind of a different deal. I'm with you, Spurrier and Miles.
What else we got?
All right, so in honor of Wimbledon, which just wrapped up last week, we're going to do the tennis big three. So Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic.
It was a great match, by the way.
It was
a historic match.
It was an incredible one. Another one with Federer and Nadal. And I'm going to go with those two guys. Okay. Because like if you really like, it's an easy deal for one, just run the numbers in terms of Grand Slams. It's Fed 20 plus, Nadal at 18, and then Djokovic right there behind him. So as great as they are, I mean the top 3 Grand Slam winners of all time in this era, but Federer and Nadal with the most Grand Slams. And when you look at head to head, Nadal 23 and 16 against Federer, which is the biggest number of all of their. Djokovic against Federer, it's like Djokovic, and he's like 500 against both of those guys, and Federer has a losing record, but it's Nadal's dominance over, not dominance over Federer, but Nadal beat Federer at his peak, too. Like Djokovic came on when supposedly both of them were past it, and then Nadal and Federer kind of had this renaissance, but Nadal knocked off Federer at his absolute prime. I'm going to go with Nadal and Federer in a very close one.
In tennis, it's almost like you pick a side. You appreciate the sport, but you kind of pick sides when you have those great rivalries, and I always sided with Nadal. Whenever he and Federer kind of line up, man, I never liked the fact that Federer kind of gave me that Tom Brady feel, and I don't like Tom Brady, so I always went with like the underdog in the fight. So Nadal for me, and just I love Djokovic because he has like this real like I'm anti-establishment. You know what I mean? Like everybody else is so clean cut, and Djokovic just comes around.
Djokovic gives two you-know-whats about your Grand Slam titles.
And he's like, he makes the best jokes that make people uncomfortable after a match, whether he wins or loses. So for me, give me Nadal, give me Djokovic at my table.
No, it's a good point. Like it's well said. I don't know like how much fun Roger Federer would be at this table.
He's gonna take all the ladies from us while we're
and buy all the drinks though. So like we can't go wrong.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take things over to Ireland in honor of the British Open coming up. So we've got Irish pub food, fish and chips, bangers and mash, and beef stew.
These are the Irish staples, man. What you got?
Gotta have the bangers and mash. First and foremost, I got to have the bangers and mash. Give me the fish and chips as long as it's Mississippi farm raised, man. If it's Mississippi farming, shout out to the Mississippi farm raised.
How you gonna get that over there, man?
Mississippi farm raised cat. I'm not gonna even go into it right now because that's a whole other conversation. But give me the fish and chips, give me the bangers and mash, and I would prefer the pork. So go ahead.
No one really likes beef stew, right?
Yeah. Well, I like it, but
beef stew didn't have a shot here. I'm gonna go with fish and chips, obviously, because like it's fried fish and French fries. Like who doesn't like that? Lose. And when you go over there, like it might be plaice, it might be haddock, even cod. Like I just assume it'd be catfish. You know, like we have our fish and chips here every Friday, and it's catfish and friggin' hush puppies. You know what I mean? That's the southern fish and chips. But I'm gonna go fish and chips, and I'm gonna blow this sucker up and bring in chicken curry.
Ooh.
Did you know that chicken curry is a staple traditional Irish fare? When you go into a pub in Ireland, and just like everywhere, you can order bangers and mash and beef stew. Chicken curry is all the rage. I went over to Phineas on Monday, and what I have? Chicken curry, man.
The more you know.
I'm all in. I'm all in. Like I was shocked. Like when I went over there, I was like, "What is this chicken curry everywhere?"
Chicken curry.
But it is as traditional as the bangers and mash. And like, who doesn't like chicken curry?
Tell you something else that was a little strange. This NBA offseason, it was an NBA frenzy. So let's talk about the best duos that are paired up right now. LeBron and AD, Kawhi and Paul George, or Westbrook and Harden.
Go ahead.
I think there's also a chance to blow this one up as well because speaking of Curry, Chef Curry, I think Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are going to take a back seat to no one in terms of a duo. Ray, I have a sense we're going to agree on this. I'm going to go with the two duos who do it all at both ends of the floor. I'm going to go LeBron and Anthony Davis, and I'm going to go Kawhi and Paul George. Now, I think Paul George is kind of a fake superstar.
Yeah,
when you put Paul George up against LeBron and AD and Kawhi, and I know Houdini Hank feels that way. But in terms of like that team with Kawhi and George in the modern NBA being able to defend multiple positions, space and pace, 3 and D and all of that, like you can't come up with a scarier wing combination than Kawhi and Paul George. LeBron's still the best in the game. Anthony Davis, the best do-it-all big men in the game. Westbrook and Harden are going to fill up the stat sheet, but I don't think they'll take you to the finals.
So when I heard about the Westbrook trade from OKC to Houston, the first thing I said was everybody else on the team needs to work on pick and roll. and damn the roll. Just set the pick and get back on D because there ain't enough Spaldings in the gym for those two guys. So I don't know how that's going to work. It's going to be entertaining as heck, but at the end of the day, man, there ain't enough room at our table for Westbrook and Harden.
Yeah.
The egos, the way that they play, they can't even sit.
Oh yeah, because there's no egos around this table otherwise.
So LeBron and AD gotta have it. Give me Kawhi and Paul George because if we bring Westbrook and Harden to the table, they're gonna get us traded from the sports lounge straight up.
So well said. So well said. But I will just keep in mind, like, don't write off them guys in Golden State yet with Steph and Klay.
Yeah.
All right, for the last one, let's bring things back over to golf, and we'll do championship golfers, and we're going Koepka, McIlroy, and Molinari.
Well, I'm all on Koepka right now.
Okay,
all
as you
over
should be.
It, all over. He's dominating the sport. He is the best golfer in the game right now. So that's an easy pick. Let him sit with me, and I'll pick his brain and try to rub off some of his skills as well. Man, give me Molinari. Give me Molinari just because he won last year, and here we are with McIlroy once again about to underachieve, and no underachievers sitting at the table with me. So give me Molinari. Give me Koepka.
I'm with you. I think you hit the nail on the head. Spot on. We need to get you on the golf channel.
How about that, man?
Because, I'm with of the three guys who I'd most like to actually just chill with at the table, it's certainly Rory McIlroy because he's so earnest, he's so open, he's so down to earth. But part of that is why I think he hasn't had the success that Koepka's had recently because Koepka's so laser focused. He's like a Terminator out there, and Rory's in his feelings. You know what I mean? To use the phrase, Rory is so in his feelings.
It's so true. Like, you're spot on with that. Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Koepka and Molinari also. I think Koepka should be the favorite. The fact that he's not is just more fuel for you know what I mean? Bruce Koepka and everything else.
Go down to Waterview with that one. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Bruce Koepka and I picked Frankie Molinari to win it on our Play It Where It Lies show. I think he will repeat. He's just such a consummate hitter of the golf ball over 4 days, and I think that's what it's going to take. I think it's going to be a European-flavored leaderboard, and the reason why McIlroy is such a big name this week, as he is every week, he's the tournament co-host de facto. Right. I mean, this is his course.
He's going to be the ambassador,
and I just think that's a situation that creates pressure. It creates distractions. I think Rory's better when he's sort of on some course in Florida, left to his own devices. I'm not sure that it's actually the best week for Rory because it's going to mean so much to him.
It would be a phenomenal storyline if he could finish it, man. But you're right. There's going to be so much pressure on him. Unfortunately, the last thing he'll be able to do is focus on his golf game for full 4 rounds.
Maybe he channels the magic. I mean, Buddy shot 61 there when he was 15. I don't think I'd do that in 9 holes, shoot 61, right now, you know what I mean, on that course. You expect anything from Tiger this week?
Nope, because he said he's not expecting much from himself. So if Tiger says that he's not feeling his game right now, there's no reason for me to be like, oh, Tiger, you got it. No, he don't got it. So he'll be going home Saturday for sure.
Big Cat is the big mystery right now, but I can't wait for the Open Championship happening this week at Royal Portrush. The Sports Lounge happening every week right here at Bash Brothers Media. Took a couple weeks off. Hope you everybody had a good July 4th. We're refreshed. We made some upgrades here in the Sports Lounge studio. And Television's own Ray Coleman. I'm John Wiener. David Brandt still to join us. Game time. Gonna keep it simple, keep it classy, cerebral. Connect 4 coming up in the Sports Lounge. We're brought to you by Waterview Sportsbook and Casino. Stay with us.
You are in the Sports Lounge, Mississippi's place for sports.
Well, it's getting to be our favorite time of year, SEC football season, and happy to welcome in one of our favorite guys back into the Sports Lounge. The Associated Press's David Brandt is in Hoover all week for SEC Media Days. David, thanks for joining us. Good to see you, bud.
Yeah, man.
Good to see you guys. Got my credential. I'm there. I'm in Hoover.
He's so official. And we're putting the video technology right to work. You get the badge right under the camera. David, what's the scene at SEC Media Days? I know you've seen it, and covered it in years past. Is it the same every year? Is there anything different this year? Just kind of give us an idea of the scene on the ground there.
It's always a variation of the same thing. It's always fun to get the football season started. As far as it relates to Ole Miss and Mississippi State, maybe a little less hype surrounding the teams, but it's always fun to get things going here. It's always, there's the people downstairs always getting the autographs and all those different things. So it's always a good time here.
What are some of those biggest headlines that are standing out in your opinion? Is it Kelly Bryant with Mizzou? You know what I mean? Is it Mississippi State and Ole Miss? Can they not finish at the bottom? Alabama versus Georgia again in the SEC title game. Kind of tell me what you think those storylines are that are going to be standing out throughout the week.
Well, I think league-wide it's a really good year for quarterbacks. You've obviously got Tua at Alabama, Joe Burrow at LSU, Franks at Florida, Mond at Texas A&M, and then you've got a lot of transfer guys. You talk Kelly Bryant going to Mizzou. Arkansas's got an SMU transfer, Ben Hicks. Obviously, Mississippi State with what they're probably going to do with Tommy Stevens. It's just a really loaded year. A lot of veteran quarterbacks. And when you do that, obviously there's a lot of other guys on the field, but I think most teams feel good about themselves when they know who's going to be under center. So the quarterbacks are a big deal. And I think also another storyline is Alabama. Can anybody knock them off? As cool as it is to have dynasties and people talk about that, it can also make things. And outside of Alabama and Georgia, it's, everybody else just seems to be playing for second or third place. And so I think those are the two main storylines, just how the good the quarterbacks are this year and if anybody can kind of stop the Alabama machine.
David, it's funny you talk about the quarterbacks, and a name that you didn't mention is Matt Corral at Ole Miss, who represents Ole Miss, there in SEC Media Days on Wednesday. He carries himself like a big-time dude with the moxie and the swagger and some of that, and we know what Ole Miss has done historically offensively recently with the receivers. Now they bring in Rich Rodriguez, who's an offensive guru. What are your expectations ultimately for Corral and how good he can be or not at Ole Miss in Oxford this fall?
Yeah, he's one reason I didn't include him is even though he was here, he's one of the few guys that doesn't have much experience. It's incredibly rare for a team to bring a freshman, even if it's a redshirt freshman, to SEC Media Days. Now, it's happened because I asked about this, and apparently it has happened a couple times, but this is like my 12th or 13th year at SEC Media Days, and I can barely remember this happening. It's a special case. And so I think that Corral showed a decent amount in the limited time he had on the field. I think he really took advantage of that 4-game stretch that a freshman can play without losing a year of eligibility. Completed 72% of his passes, ran for a couple touchdowns. I think there's enough that you could be excited about it. But it was a small sample size. I saw you make that face.
Yeah, no, but that's a big-time number, though.
That's a lot. It was 16 of 22, 72%. Uh-huh. So, in the time he was on the field, I think he showed enough to get fans excited. Obviously, the small sample size will go out the window. People are going to be preparing for him. He's got a lot of young players around him, too. It's not all about the quarterback. It's what the other guys can handle, too. So just a lot of uncertainty there. I think that what you've seen so far from Corral, that people are encouraged by it. But, it's a little different when it's your job. You're out there from day one, you're going into Memphis, and then you've got Arkansas, and the games really start rolling at you quickly.
Corral caught about as many hands from Jamal Peters in that Egg Bowl, Go ahead. Yeah. Had to get that one in there.
David, you mentioned the stockpile of talented quarterbacks in the SEC this year, man. But there has to be a stockpile of talent on these teams in general if we're going to knock off Alabama or Georgia in that SEC title game. In your opinion, Dave, are there one or two teams that kind of stand out to you that have that possibility, the talent, the cohesiveness to possibly knock out Alabama or Georgia to appear in that conference title game?
Well, the one team that really jumps out at me as kind of a team that could surprise is Texas A&M, and I just go back with coaching. I mean, Jimbo Fisher doesn't lose a lot of football games, man, and I think he's got it rolling there a little bit. They've got some experience under center with Kellen Mond. I just really like what they're building there. I think LSU is talented. I keep saying this year after year that I'm not sure I trust Ed Orgeron, but he keeps winning games. So at some point, I guess I'm going to have to start trusting him. So I think LSU's in that discussion. I still think maybe Florida's a year away from maybe being truly elite, but the team that just kind of jumps out at me as somebody that can make a leap is Texas A&M.
Yeah, you look at, Florida and Dan Mullen with Felipe Franks. I mean, Dave, you talk about a guy who just wins a lot of football games. It's Dan Mullen. What are the expectations for your sense around where his Florida program is? Because we know that's a program and a fan base that feels like, hey, we should compete with Georgia. We should compete for national championships. They had been dreadful before Mullen got there in terms of their talent. Where are they now ultimately?
It's high. I mean, the expectations are really high. It's Florida. They're expected to compete for national titles. And, I think that Mullen is showing again how good of a coach he is by getting somebody like Franks, who's been really inconsistent through his career. I think you've seen his growth. And the fact that we're talking about him being one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC really, again, speaks to how Mullen can take many different quarterbacks with many different skill sets and fix the offense into the way that makes them as good as they can be. So, obviously the Georgia game is going to be huge just because I think those are the two teams in the East that really look like they could contend. Missouri's really interesting because obviously Kelly Bryant is interesting, but, they have a one-year postseason ban right now. And unless they get their appeal overturned, which some people think they have a pretty good chance because it was a pretty harsh punishment, they're not even eligible. So at that point, who else would win it? South Carolina or Tennessee? I mean, you'd have some real kind of dark horse candidates. So it seems like Georgia or Florida, that game's going to loom large in the East.
Yeah. Look, that's exactly what I was going to ask him as far as the Missouri and the violation that could be upcoming as far as the change. So you answered my question. Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap it up with this. In terms of like the big story, here in the States and the South is in Hoover and SEC Media Days. But for a lot of people, it's over in Northern Ireland and certainly me, Royal Portrush, and the Open Championship. David, I know you've grown into like a resident golf guru around these parts. Any idea, any inkling in terms of what you expect this week at the Open Championship? Who you think might play well?
Come on, man. You're getting me out of my element now. You're just teasing me now.
There's no element that's out for David Brandt.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go Brooks Koepka.
There you go. It's a smart one. Yeah. Koepka, beer, links golf, the whole deal. That's the scene in the Open Championship. One of the best doing it always. David Brandt, one of the nicest guys you'll meet as well, joining us from SEC Media Days in Hoover here in the Sports Lounge. David, we appreciate it. Great to see your pretty face on camera, man.
That's right.
Big Game Brandt, 6'8" Dave, all that good stuff. Dave, we'll talk to you soon, man.
The things I do for you guys.
Like no one else, man. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, man. Take care.
That's David Brandt joining us from SEC Media Days in Hoover. We'll have more in the Sports Lounge coming up.
The Sports Lounge is the spot for every fan. Share the show for a chance to win a one-night stay for two at Waterview Casino in Vicksburg.
Good to be back in the Sports Lounge, and we're glad you're back with us again. We're every week at bashbrothersmedia.com/Sports Lounge, and of course Facebook, YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Bash Bros Media. Ray Coleman, I'm John Wiener. ISO Joe on the ISO cam. Houdini Hank, our director. Josh the Juice giving us some good tunes,
Josh
man.
the Juice
it's
bringing
crucial.
us back, man, and it's just good vibes back in the Sports Lounge, man. We've had great conversation thus far, man.
Hey, speaking of good vibes, I want to take a quick look behind you. I want to shout out my guy. You see the new addition to the Sports Lounge?
Legend.
Signed Deuce McAllister photo. I want to shout out my guy Bill Hetrick for making that happen with us. One of the charter members there, founding members of the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. And Ray, when you talk about Deuce, I mean, Morton, Mississippi, Ole Miss High School, goes down to the Saints. I mean, there's, other than like maybe Steve McNair, you know what I mean? Like, there aren't many athletes who've been more names, sort of intertwined with the Gulf South and Mississippi recently than Deuce.
And Deuce is huge here, but then when you go down to New Orleans, you realize that Deuce's name just transcends into Crescent City. When you say his name, he is a living legend in New Orleans as well, man.
Very Archie-esque, Mississippi born, started Ole Miss, Giannis went to the Saints, and just the legacy and the impact, the gravitas, when Deuce or Archie walks into the room. Well, I tell you another thing people are interested in here, certainly around the South, and as we get into this time of year, Ray, I'm talking with a lot of people these days. They say, I'm watching the Braves.
Yeah, man.
They say, I'm watching Braves baseball.
No doubt.
Major League Baseball right now in the dog days of summer taking center stage. And ISO Joe, the Atlanta Braves are really making a move in the National League. And you and I were talking earlier as we get into our deep dish, and you say, hey, this Braves team isn't supposed to be this good?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like they have the star power that a lot of the other top teams have, but they have a lot of pieces that are just working really well together right now, which I think just makes them as good as they are. When you look at their starting pitching from Soraka and Fried, and then you have, the bats to back it up with Freeman, Albies, Acuna, Markakis. They've got a ton of talent.
Yes.
So,
What makes the Braves so good for you right now?
Man, it's a mixture of things. They've done it. I don't want to call it an unconventional way, but they found a way, man, to bring in just the right amount of free agents with the farm hands, right?
Yep.
And what I mean by that, from Acuna and Albies, right, and Freddie Freeman, those
and
guys.
Dansby Swanson, another homegrown kid.
All those guys that we know have seen them grow and come through Pearl, right? From Josh Donaldson on that side for the free agents to bring in that grit mentality, man, to say we're here to play night in, night out, and compete. And then you bring in that timely pitching that you heard ISO Joe talk about. They're putting it together ahead of schedule, and I think the reason is because they've been able to mix that pot perfectly, and you're seeing the results of it.
Joe, you know who they remind me of a little bit are the Royals from a few years ago, the Astros from a few years ago.
Nice.
Like, not big market, but the way that they've built it from their farm system, and they kind of carry it with the sort of like this is us mentality a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is that off to sort of look at? They kind of remind me of the Pirates and the Giants and those sort of plucky type teams from recently.
No, I think Ray hit it on the head. I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule, but this is a team that I think is going to be scary for the next couple of years because of their young talent and how well their farm system has done. And this is just the beginning. This is that first year where all of a sudden they're making a statement and saying, hey, we're here to compete, and you better be afraid of what we're going to do in the future.
And guys, when you talk about Ronald Acuna, must-see TV.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, he is, I won't say Griffey-esque, but in the terms of the way that you turn it on in every game, he will make a play that just you say, this dude is unlike anybody else.
From shining in the home run derby, right, to climbing the wall, to stealing bases, hitting for triples, hitting 404. I watched him play the Padres last week.
It's a Willie Mays type thing. Yeah.
One of the pitchers went high and in on him, like 90 plus. Next pitch, he hit it 415 feet, and then looked at the guy after he crushed it. Dead center. I mean, these are the kind of talents that they have put together, man. And ISO is right. These guys are kids. Albies, Acuna, those are babies.
Well, and let's shout out another guy, Mississippi-made Austin Riley, who's come up from the minor leagues. And I was watching the game with our guy Tyler Cleveland the other night, and like I see Rick Cleveland on Twitter now. It's all about it's Braves, Braves, you know. But Austin Riley comes in, and we were watching the game the other night, and they walked a guy in front of Riley, and Tyler was like, they're gonna throw him a first pitch fastball, and he's gonna hit it halfway out of the ballpark, and he did just that. Like Riley has been a guy that's added to that. Joe, how far are they from the Dodgers?
Standings wise?
Just in terms of, the Dodgers have the best record in Major League Baseball. But how do you see that shaking out between Atlanta and Los Angeles?
I still think that the Dodgers have a lot of star power when you look at guys like Clayton Kershaw. If he can figure it out in the postseason, you look at MVPs like Cody Bellinger on that team. Like, they have the experience in the playoffs. They have the best record in baseball right now. They have the star power to back them up. I don't think that the Braves are super far away, but I still think that, I think the Dodgers are ahead by a good margin just because of the experience that they have already.
I would just say this, the one thing to pay attention to with the Braves as it relates to the Dodgers and what wins in October. LA, with all of their firepower and starting pitching, it's about those late innings in October, getting clutch hits and what your bullpen does. And the Braves, even without a dominant closer, have the best bullpen ERA in the entire National League. And that, I think, has kind of been the Dodgers' Achilles heel a little bit. Like, when you're you know what I mean? If you run those starters out there, it's great, but you put all your eggs in that basket and they don't get it done. Like, I think the Braves' middle relief, believe it or not, I think can be a difference with them with Los Angeles.
And here's why I think they have a decent shot. I do agree with you that the Dodgers are head and shoulders above them, just simply because of the experience and that they have the proven talent to do it. But the Braves are finding ways to win now through that middle relief, through timely hitting. They don't have to win by blowout. They find ways to win late in the 8th and 9th and in extra innings. And I think that will help young guys say, we've done it before. When we get to the postseason, maybe we can kind of look back on that. Not saying that I think they'll beat the Dodgers in the playoffs. I think the Dodgers are clearly the best team in the NL, but
Well, as we look ahead to the trade deadline, like most people expect the Braves to make a move for a starting pitcher or a closer on the back end, as good as the bullpen is. Joe, what are the big moves, the big players or teams in terms of they're going to make a difference in the trade deadline here for the season going forward?
Yeah, there are a lot of big names out there right now, and you talk about trying to add some experience to this Braves team for the playoffs. A name to watch would probably be Madison Bumgarner. I know he's not exactly what he was in the past.
That's in play, Bumgarner to the
Giants
Braves?
are trying to move him. I don't know if the Braves are on that train for getting him, but I think it would be smart for them to take a look, especially with his past in the playoffs. Yeah. And then you look at guys like Will Smith, who's probably one of the best relievers on the market right now. I think that he'll be in play for the Dodgers more than the Braves because they really need him. But there are a lot of guys. Marcus Stroman, too, for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think he's a little bit more of a cost-effective option, but you get him locked up for a couple years still, and he's a really solid pitcher and brings a lot of attitude to a team as well.
And I know your New York Yankees are looking to make a move for a starting pitcher as well.
Yeah, the Yankees are in the market. We're looking at Bumgarner, we're looking at Stroman, Trevor Bauer. There are a lot of really big names, and the pitching is really what you're looking at in this trade deadline. There's a lot of starting pitching and a lot of relief that is looking to be moved around right now.
And this is the time to get Madison because the Giants are dead last in the NL West. You know what I mean? So they're going to be looking to kind of move that anyway. And I think it is going to be either the Yankees or the Braves. The Braves did a good job in getting Dallas Keuchel from Houston.
It feels like San Francisco is turning the page over finally.
It's time to rebuild for them. And they've had prolonged success. So, it comes a time when every franchise, well, except for the Yankees, have to kind of rebuild, and they just reset. Those guys over in New York just reset. But, man, it's been fun to watch as a Braves fan, to watch these guys again. Feel like every night they're in it, and you know that they're going to have prolonged success now.
And I'll say this as we close here on the Deep Dish. Like, I have, surprisingly, found myself wanting to get to the TV and watch Braves games lately in a way that I haven't in the past. And guys, doesn't it feel like the MLB is starting to kind of get it right a little bit in terms of where they were criticized for so long? And I'll shout out Houdini Hank, our director. We were talking about this. When you look at like Bellinger in LA is a great example. Acuna in Atlanta is a great example. It feels like there's a lot of good teams, a lot of good young stars who love playing the game and are exciting. There's big market teams, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Braves. Like, am I crazy to think that it feels like the Major League Baseball is a little sexier than it was 10 years ago?
I know during the All-Star break, they wanted to talk about juiced baseballs and all these and high scores. Listen, man, the game is exciting again. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing. You name Bellinger, Acuna, Christian Yelich. We're seeing young guys, man, who love playing the game, and you can tell it by the way that they are out there competing. That's all we want to see. We don't want to see 6-hour games, and we don't want to see guys kind of loaf it around. We're seeing a little bit of everything. Home runs, but we're also seeing triples. We're also seeing great double plays. And that's what we want.
And starting pitching still going out there and dominating. Guys in the back end like Aroldis Chapman, who like, I'm going to pay to see this dude. You know what I mean? Like when you see Chapman, you're like, that is, it was like when you went to a Yankee game back in the day and like Mo would pitch. You said, man, I really got my money's worth. Like Chapman's the same kind of way, and I feel like there's a lot of teams, Joe, that kind of present that.
Yeah, and I think the MLB has done a great job. We talked about earlier in the season, they need to really build up these superstars. Like you talked, Yelich too for the Brewers. Like even those type of teams are getting these active players who are trying to be out in the community, try and show off their baseball skills, and just be these bigger than baseball type of players. And it's done wonders for the sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm excited for the second half of the Major League season, and certainly, with the Braves like around here. I mean, Ray, you and I grew up watching the Braves on TBS. Like that's a real thing here.
It is a real thing. I grew up watching them on the Superstation with Glavine and Smoltz and Maddox and Terry Pendleton, Otis Nixon.
Ronnie Gann out there.
David Justice,
Dion, primetime, sure.
So the fact that we're able to kind of see this again, man, and you can flip them on, and every night you watch them compete, and it's an exciting brand of baseball. That's what makes it fun, man, because you see them buying into it, and so it just makes you want to watch every night.
Well, speaking of want to watch, that's the Sports Lounge every week right here. Bash Brothers Media. Don't try it at home, man. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they pay us the big bucks for. BashBrothersMedia.com.
The Sports Lounge is hosted by Waterview Sportsbook and Casino in Vicksburg, Mississippi's #1 place for legal sports betting.
It's game time in the Sports Lounge, and this week we got a good one. It's Connect 4, and we're going to play it a little bit quicker, rapid fire. I'm going to be counting it down, and if you guys don't know how to play Connect 4, well, let me explain it really quick.
Wait, do you connect 4?
Yeah, exactly. You got to get it vertical, horizontal, or diagonal.
We got to keep it simple in here.
Yeah, see, John's got it. I don't know. Now I'm feeling pretty confident for John, but so we got, obviously, John facing off against Ray. So, you guys ready to get this going?
Yeah.
Appreciate the track here from Juice. I'm like ready to go.
Who's got first move? Is it me?
I mean, I've won like the last 5 weeks, so I'll go first.
There you go.
Ready? So how much time were you going to count us down?
Yeah, I'm going to count you down, and then you got 5 seconds to make a move.
All right, let's go.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4.
Hey, the seconds don't go that fast, buddy. Jeez, this ain't no damn rapid seconds.
4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 4, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3.
Oh, rock on! Dub. Again.
Nice,
1, 2,
nice.
3, 4, deuces.
Yeah. Almost ran out of chips.
I don't know how that opened up over there, man. All of a sudden, it was like I saw a hole on the back side.
It started happening fast.
You know what I mean? I'm rolling out right, and all of a sudden, the running back like sneaks out on the backside on the other side.
It's like in the cartoon where like you plug one hole and the water shoots out the other.
Exactly. I feel like the pace and the speed kind of helped me out a little bit. You know, it was like a 2-minute drill there, scramble at the end. You just forgot about the open receiver.
Forgot about the open receiver, man. Left him open, and he just tried it into the end zone.
I worry about you sometimes.
Winners win, man. Winners win.
Game time, Sports Lounge, every week. Stay with us.
The Sports Lounge, the spot for every fan. Online, on screen, every week at Bash Brothers Media.
Legend Chain stays here. We appreciate you staying with the Sports Lounge. Tell them about it, JoJo.
Another day, another
that,
dub.
right?
I did like that.
John takes a win with a little misdirection that throws Ray for a loop and
Yeah.
ends up finding him on the backside for a W.
You know, it was surprisingly fun.
When you put time into it, man, it puts a little pressure on you. Like I said, it's kind of like the cartoon. You plug one hole, water comes out the other side, and I ran out of plugs.
Like Houdini Hank and I played earlier today, just to get a little. I had a couple practice
It's all right.
runs
It's okay.
for you.
It's
You know
all
what I
right.
mean?
It's
Taking
all good.
advantage,
It's all good.
home lounge advantage. But it wasn't as fun as when me and Houdini Hank played it. But that felt lit.
It did, man.
Yeah.
The time absolutely made a difference.
Yeah.
I let the running back leak out, man. He
Yeah.
ran the wheel route for 6, man. What can
Game
you say?
time in the Sports Lounge. It's always intense. It's always hype. It's always fun. We appreciate everybody joining us this week here on the Sports Lounge. It's good to be back in the saddle. I think we will. We'll see in terms of the next couple weeks. But in terms of mid-August, I mean, especially here in Mississippi, like that's what I love about this state, and certainly our audience and our scope is across the country, but it's certainly here in Mississippi as well. You don't have to wait until September 1st.
No,
right
sir.
here on Friday nights, because it means so much. Like your football's here like August 10th, man.
And it's here, and it's going to be here until January, February, when you go from high school all the way through the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's just the best time of the year when you live here in Mississippi, and we'll have so much to cover from every level. It's going to be absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it'll certainly be the NFL and college football and the SEC, but Friday Night Lights, I know, are never
question.
far from our minds and from our hearts, certainly. Wait a second. Before we go any further, we got the
gotta
game
spin.
wheel here, man. We got to spin and see what's
you
happening
spin, man.
next week. I know. Put Booby in.
Yeah.
Let me spin. See what we're going to get coming up this week. Mortal Kombat.
How about that, man?
Get over here. I'm ready. Corey
ready for
Rhoda
that.
worked me in Mortal Kombat last time. I'm going to have to get a few practice sessions in, man. I was trying to do the Sub-Zero move the whole time and just got my ass kicked instead.
And
I'm
meanwhile,
trying
he
to
was
shoot the
methodically
thing and he
breaking
was
you
just
down.
working me.
Of course,
You know what
of
I mean?
course.
So it'll be Mortal Kombat. next week in the Sports Lounge. Make sure you join us every week. Before we get out, as always, we got to take some parting shots. ISO Joe.
Mine's for the younger crowd this week, and everybody, around this time is looking for validation about their football teams. Well, Madden ratings came out. Everybody's up in arms, including the players. Madden, you got to do better. Fix your ratings. How are the Eagles the top team in the NFL? Just doesn't really make sense.
Sounds mad online over there, doesn't it?
Right.
That sounded like a mad Colts fan.
I'm a huge boxing fan, and over the past few days, man, we lost one of the great Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker. If you don't know who Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker is, first YouTube, because we're in that generation. But the best comparison I can give you is kind of like a Floyd Mayweather, one of the best, if not the best, defensive boxer of all time, man. He was one of the first guys that really got me into the sport of appreciating the sweet science that is boxing. So rest in peace, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker.
Yeah, very good one. Excited for the Open Championship in Northern Ireland this week. It returned for the first time in 68 years. And one of the reasons it's returning to Northern Ireland and hasn't been there in almost 7 decades is because of the awful civil war and strife that happened in Northern Ireland in the 1970s and 80s, of course, called the Troubles. And I just think, and again, Hack and Hank talked about this a little bit on our Play It Where It Lies show, it is great to see a country that has gotten past, and we think our country is arguing right now and in strife and kind of at each other, nothing compared to the horror and the terror and the hate and the destruction that was present in Northern Ireland not even 50 years ago. And this week is a celebration of how far that they have come. And so it's a kudos to them, and it's going to be a great event, but also an example of, even as difficult as it may get within your country in terms of two sides opposing each other, there can be a brighter day. And I think we're going to see it in Northern Ireland this week. It's a really fantastic story, and I'm looking forward as well to a fantastic golf tournament. Those are our parting shots, and it's the Sports Lounge every week, online, on screen, here at Bash Brothers Media. Ray, we got to shout out the crew before we go. It's good to get back with the guys.
Man, it's so good to be back hanging out, man. The vertigo has not flared up one time since I've been in here, by the way, so that means it's positive energy, good energy in here with my boy ISO, my boy Houdini Hank, my guy Josh the Juice, and my main man. Come on now, my guy.
Great to see you.
Yeah, man.
Big shout out to David Brandt, Big Game Brandt, for joining us in the Sports Lounge. Football season right around the corner. We couldn't be more ready for it. For all the guys behind the camera, for Sugar Ray, TV Zone, I'm John Wiener. Join us next week in the Sports Lounge.
Thanks for stopping into the Sports Lounge. Join us online, on screen, every week at Bash Brothers Media.